So why you can't wait any longer to get started. I know a lot of people have already gotten started, and so I hope I don't completely bore you to death, but for those of you who haven't gotten started, I hope I will be able to convince you as to why you need to go ahead and get started and why you cannot wait. So I'm gonna give you a little information about me. We're gonna talk about the race gap. Our sister did such a beautiful job earlier with that, so I won't go in very hard on that. So we'll just touch on that a little bit. The generational wealth, the mindset, rich dad, poor dad, building relationships, the tribe that you need, getting your finances in order. Jeff Johnson did an amazing job with that, so we won't harbor on that too much. The next steps, follow me, and then I will leave some time for Q&A. So just a little bit about me. I'm the mother of one son. He just got married last October, and I worked corporate for over 25 years. In this year in particular, there was a lot of my upper level management were taking the buyout. So every so often when people would turn 55, they would offer this buyout. And so I remember thinking, man, when I turn 55, I want to be in a position to take that, right? That was my mindset. So I called my mortgage company and I got what my payoff was going to be. My loan was going to be paid off in 2027. I was going to be 55 in 2025. I'm like, whatever they offer me, that should be able to cover the difference. And then I met a lady that said this: retirement is a number, not an age. Retirement is a number, not an age. And then that's what got me to thinking, well, if I can earn my expenses in passive income with real estate, then I get to decide when I retire, or if I leave corporate America and do what God has purposed me to do. So then I'm in control. So full-time entrepreneur, I'm a Sunday school teacher. I started playing the clarinet when I was age 9. My church now, we still have an orchestra, I still play, and of course I am a lover of real estate. So here it is. This is the race gap for the Louisville Metro ownership by race. I was at the National Association of Real Estate Brokers meeting, and it was a State of Black America kind of thing, and they put this slide up, and I had to take a picture. So as you can see, the white owned 74.3%. That's the home ownership rate for them. Asian, 57%, Hispanic, 42%, and Black, we are at a 37.9% home ownership rate. Which the worst part of all of this is that we have gotten worse. That's the worst part. So we have more information, we're making more money, we're more educated, there's more information, but we are doing less and doing worse. So the gap between Black and white home ownership in Louisville is 36.4%. So I'm on a mission to rectify that because that is horrible. And before I get started with that, on Juneteenth, I went live on social media and read page 3 of my book, A Beginner's Guide to Financial Freedom Through Investing in Real Estate. So bear with me, it's real short, but I just wanted to read this. Focus on the result of finding a successful investment. What is this going to mean for your family to have a cash flowing property? What is it going to feel like for you to have property that you can pass down to the next generation? Have the mindset that this is not about you. This is about generations to come. This is about our ancestors not being able to purchase land, and now we have the privilege to stand on their shoulders and achieve what they weren't able to accomplish. Focus on how you can position your grandchildren and great-grandchildren to be ahead in this game of life instead of miles behind. Focus on what it could mean to have real wealth to solve some of the world's biggest problems. I was like, oh, you wrote that? I was like, okay. It was like, once you write a book, then you kind of forget what you said, and then I was like, oh, that was good. All right, generational wealth. So what does generational wealth mean? Well, to me, it means being able to do what I want to do and pass it on to the next generation. Being able to enjoy passive income now, and my grandchildren be able to enjoy it, and my great-grandchildren being able to enjoy it. My goal right now is to have a property for my son. I already have a property for my son and my nephew, and to have a property for all of their kids and have a property for everybody while I am living. That is my personal goal. My nephew is going real quick. He's on his second child, so I got to get busy. Generational wealth. Housing is one of your biggest expenses. Imagine passing a house down to each of your grandchildren. If you are able to pass a house down to each one of your children, or your grandchildren, or your nieces and nephews, or your cousins, or leave churches or leave houses for your church, just imagine how that's going to put them up. Just imagine how that is going to help them. Let's not have this mindset of, well, nobody left me a house, I'm not going to leave nobody else a house. Squash all that. This is about setting them up so that they don't have the same struggles that we had. Save money in the bricks. So the first property that I purchased was $89,000. It was an estate. It smelled horrible, and I had a vision for it. When I was growing up, not when I was growing up, when I was in college, I went to go visit my friend, and the brick to her house matched the brick to her garage. And I just thought that was just the coolest thing. And I was like, okay, I want a house where the brick of the garage matches the house. Obviously, my goals are not high enough, but in 2002, I bought a house where the brick matched the brick of the garage. $89,000 then. Now, I could potentially sell the house for at least $200,000. It's so hard to save $100,000. It's much easier to buy a property and let that be your savings account, and then let that property appreciate and is worth more and more every single year, so that you can't touch it. Because what happens? If you try to save $100,000, then your car is going to break down and something's going to happen, and you're going to keep on touching it, you're going to keep on touching it, and you're not going to save $100,000. Whereas if it's in the bricks, it's a whole lot harder to get to it. So it's a great way to save money. And then responsibly use the equity. So the house that I was telling you about, I'm able to get what they call a home equity line of credit, or a HELOC. And in the past, these have gotten a bad name because people were pulling out the equity and going on vacation and buying liabilities and all these things. Whereas when you use the equity responsibly, then it's a whole different story. What if you pull the equity out of your house to buy more property? What if you pull the equity out of your house in order to have a brick and mortar for your cookie company? So we can be creative with the equity in our property, but let's be responsible with that equity. So the first thing I talk about in my book, and the thing that I love to talk about all the time, is mindset. So, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Has anybody read the book, Rich Dad Poor Dad? Okay, some people in here. So, Rich Dad Poor Dad is basically a book that talks about the difference between what rich people teach their children versus what poor people teach their children. So, the thing that I got out of this book the most is poor people say, I can't. I can't own real estate. I can't go to college. I can't write a book. I can't have a conference. I can't. And what happens when you say, I can't, your creative juices have stopped.
That's right.
Because I can't do it. However, the rich people teach their children, how can I? How can I own a house? How can I get started in real estate? How can I open my own business? How can I go to college and graduate debt-free? How can I? So when you say, how can I? Now your creative juices are like, well, how can I do this, right? When I first bought my first piece of investment property, when I'm thinking, okay, how can I? I don't have the down payment. When you reach out to them, they might say, if you decide you want to flip houses and you call up a bank and they're going to say that they're going to want somewhere between 10 to 30%, depending on your experience. And so I didn't have 30%. So I was like, well, how can I? Well, wonder how much money I got in that 401k. So I called up the little 401k people, and they said this was November of 2020, I believe. I called up the little 401k people, and I said, hey, how much do I have in there? They said $170,000. I was like, whoa, I didn't know I had that much. And so what I did was I borrowed against my 401k for the down payment for my real estate property. So fast forward to March of 2021, I called that same company back, and they said I had $200,000.
Wow.
So I pulled out 30, which brought me back to where I was. So I was like, that was a win-win. So when COVID happened and stocks was doing all these things, and I was so thankful that I pulled that money out, because now I'm diversifying my retirement portfolio. And if we need multiple streams of income now, what makes us think we're not going to need multiple streams of income once we retire? So don't just depend on one strategy for when you do decide to retire. Have multiple streams of income. So change your mindset. So from now on, remove can't from your vocabulary. Remove can't from your vocabulary. The other thing that this book taught me is the middle class pay the most in taxes. So that part made me mad. Because since I had both of my tax for 2 years really close, I was like, is this true? So I go to my taxes, because they ask you for 2 or 3 years of taxes or whatever. So I had them handy. I go to them. I had just gotten a raise. I had gotten an 18% raise on my job. Highest raise I had ever gotten in my entire life. And I paid 50% more in taxes. You do the math. I was like, when I saw that, I was like, wow. So paying taxes is one of the biggest expenses that we don't even really think about, because it's not in our faces, but we pay a lot in taxes. And if you're in the middle class, and we were happy about being in the middle class, right? Now I'm arrived, I think, because I'm in the middle class, whatever, you paying the most in taxes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the other thing that this book's taught is buy assets instead of liabilities. And Jeff did a great job on that. What is an asset? It's something that is making you money. A liability doesn't make you any money. So make sure you're buying assets instead of liabilities. Whoops. Building relationships. One of the first things that I heard when I got started investing in real estate is that real estate is a relationship business. And I kept hearing that over and over and over again. And I was like, what does that even mean? It's all about relationships. And whether you're in real estate or not, building relationships is so important. One of the things you always hear, people are like, well, I'm afraid of getting in real estate because I don't want to get the call in the middle of the night that the toilet is overflowing. Well, if that is a concern for you, then build relationships with plumbers. Become a member of the National Association of Plumbers, where there's thousands of plumbers that you have access to. Remember, we were moving can't from our vocabulary, right? So how can I? You're going to need an investor-friendly real estate agent. You're going to need a general contractor. You're going to need lenders. You're going to need electricians and everybody who works on houses. You're going to need a security company, because guess what? People break in houses. When I realized that real estate was all about solving problems, it changed the game for me. Investing in real estate is all about solving problems, and it's about surrounding yourself with the people who will help you to solve those problems. That's all it is. So I have an amazing general contractor. I have an amazing contractors and lenders and security teams. My first property that I purchased for investment, my goal was to have it as a short-term rental in the West End. And the people, and we'll get to the people. But people were like, oh, you can't have a short-term rental in the West End. But you know me, I knew other people who had short-term rentals in the West End, and I was watching them. Not the people who were saying, oh, real estate is risky. Not those people. Listen to the people who are doing what you want to do and follow after them. And so at the corner of 28 and Broadway, the Goodwill had bought that 10 acres of land. So I purposely found a property that was close to that. I didn't know what they were going to do with it, but I knew it was going to be big. So if you stand in the backyard of my rental property, you can see that brand new hospital that they built where? In the West End. So what did that do to my property value?
Raised it up.
Right. So building relationships, you've got to build relationships with everybody. And meeting new people, because guess what? Real estate is popular. You already heard how many people in this room already invest in real estate. So just having a conversation wherever you're at, in the coffee shop, in the grocery store, talk to your bank and the lenders and the manager of the bank. Like, real estate is so popular. I guarantee you, if you had a goal of talking to 10 people a day, I guarantee you at least a third of those people would have some information on investing in real estate. So when I was telling you about that property, and so my first strategy was to do a short-term rental. Well, it had gotten broken into the first time, and I was like, oh, okay, all right. So we keep working on it, it gets broken into the second time. I was like, because what is the main thing that people want with a short-term rental? They want it to be clean, and they want it to be safe.
Yep.
Clean and safe. And so by the third break-in, I was like, okay, I'm done, I'm gonna flip it. What? I had a security team that was able to go over there and secure it very quickly, because that's what you need when we were talking about building those relationships. A security team, somebody, when it does get broken into, someone who can go over there and secure it quickly. So you want to just build relationships with all kinds of people who are affiliated with houses in some kind of way. So build the relationships. Okay. And then your tribe. So this is what I was talking about. It says you are the average of the 5 people that you hang around the most. And I didn't really understand that, but if you hang around people who have that poorer person's mindset, then you're going to take on their beliefs. And other people will put their fears onto you because they are afraid and they don't want to move forward, but they, for whatever reason, and I don't think they really mean it, but that they're afraid. And so when you go to them with your idea, oh, I just went to this conference and I'm gonna get started investing in real estate, and they're gonna be like, ooh, real estate is risky.
Yeah.
Interest rate.
And the interest rate is high. I'll show you how to run the numbers. As investors, we run numbers, and we let the numbers dictate to us a good deal or a bad deal, and we have multiple exit strategies. What does that mean? There's multiple ways that I can get to the kids' ass. So with the property that I was telling you about, I can make money with a short-term rental. I can make money if I flip it, or I can make money as a long-term, having a long-term tenant. Those are 3 different exit strategies for one property. You want to make sure that your property has 3 different ways, at least 2, so that if something changes, right now there's a moratorium against having short-term rentals in Kentucky. So if you buy a property and that's your only strategy, you're sunk, because Kentucky hasn't figured out the short-term rental game. If you go someplace like Gatlinburg where they're used to short-term rentals and they figured it out, okay, fine. Kentucky, we haven't figured it out. So when did the moratorium happen? The Monday after Derby. Yeah. We haven't figured it out, but they were like, you know what, we're missing some money. Let's just stop everything until we figure this out. So don't have one strategy, have multiple exit strategies. And it's harder to pull people up. So if you're hanging with these people and they're poor-minded and they don't see the vision, it's not for everybody to see the vision that God has given you. He gave it to you. Everybody can't see it. So you don't have to cut those people off, but you don't talk about your vision around them.
Right.
And so, like I said, it's harder for you to pull people up, because guess what? It's easier for them to pull you down. So don't even try. Don't even have those types of conversations with those people, because guess what? It could be your family, right? Get your finances in order. Jeff did an amazing job with this. You have some information as to, getting your credit in order. So I'm not going to do that, but know your credit score, know, where you are, and do the tips that he told you to do. Late payments are just as bad as repossessions. I heard that at a workshop, and I thought, oh wow, having a late payment is just as bad as a repossession. And then keep your personal expenses low. When you get started investing in real estate, don't go out and buy a new car, right? You're gonna want to keep your personal expenses as low as possible, because so many things can happen. So you want to have access to as much cash flow as possible. So keep your personal expenses low. It's time for, and if you want more tips to stop living paycheck to paycheck, on my website, CoachDanaSpencer.com, I have 8 tips to stop living paycheck to paycheck, where I go in a little bit deeper as to some things that you can do to stop living paycheck to paycheck. And one of them is keeping your expenses as low as possible. So where do we go from here? What's next? All right. So, I was ahead of myself. So Guide to Stop Living Paycheck to Paycheck. You can go to the website and get that. Work on improving your credit score. Jeff told us how to do that. And then the duplex strategy. So for those of you who may not have already gotten started investing in real estate, and you kind of want to dip your toe into it, why not buy a duplex? And the duplex is 2 properties, 2 units, right? So you can live in unit number 1, and then you can rent out unit number 2. And the goal is for the people who are paying the rent in unit number 2, that it covers the mortgage. It covers all of the expenses. So now you are living virtually free. So what I want you to do with the money that you would have been paying rent, to save that and buy your next property. Right? Don't just because you ain't paying rent, this is not the time to go out and buy, a Tesla. This is not the time for that, right? Remember, we're buying assets. Not unless you don't buy that Tesla and then put it on some sort of platform where you can make money from it. That's a whole different story. But don't go out and buy liabilities with this money that you're saving because you bought a duplex. So it's a great way to kind of get your foot wet, but don't tell people in unit number 2 that you own the property, right? They don't need to know that. There's no reason you need to tell them that I'm the owner. Don't do that, because now they're knocking on your door saying, hey, the toilet is leaking. So no, you don't want that. Property for your college student strategy. So what if, I know we kind of have the thing about college, but if your child is going to college, I did some research. So now it's taking 4 to 6 years to graduate from college. So imagine, instead of your child staying in the dorm, that you buy a property and your child stays in that property, and you rent out 2 or 3 of the bedrooms. And now you have a property that is going to be worth more, and you now have an asset, and you're not throwing away $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to the institution. So if you have, someone in high school right now, you might want to think about this strategy, so that most colleges are in kind of low-income areas, especially HBCUs. I was down at Southern University, and I thought, wow, in Louisiana. So regardless of where your child goes to college, you could potentially buy a property and they live in 1 bedroom, and now you still, you got cameras on the property, so you're able to kind of still keep your eye on them, but you're like, oh no, I'm getting the cameras for, because it's a safe thing to do, and now you're still able to keep your eye on your child instead of them doing Lord only knows what in the dorm, right? So, and then you're gonna be able to use the money from the other rooms and then do whatever you need to do with it. Buy another property. And here's an even bigger hack. So let's say it's a 4-bedroom. What if you put twin beds in each one of those bedrooms? Now you can have 8 people instead of 4. Yeah, so all kinds of strategies. Buy to avoid being homeless. So right now in the West End of Louisville, we have people that are renting. It's a crazy high percentage. Maybe like 80% of the people in the West End of Louisville are renting. And so if you would talk to people who are currently renting in the West End, what will they tell you? I don't want to buy in the West End. Well, here's the thing. If you don't go ahead and buy where you are, where you can afford, and you try to go in the East End, you can't afford to live there. And so many outside investors are investing in the West End, and they're increasing the rent. And so if you don't buy now, you're going to end up being homeless, because then you're not going to be able to afford anything. People are coming in and renting out property and like doubling the rent. Who can afford for their rent to be doubled? But right now, there's no law against how much I can increase your rent.
Wow.
If you're renting from me and I have a 4-bedroom, and this year I'm renting to you for $1,200, next year I can increase it to $1,600. Because guess what? I might not do, maybe I increased it to $1,400, $200 a month, where you're like, oh, it's gonna be so inconvenient to move, this, that, and the other. But there's no law against how much I can increase your rent. And if it's an apartment, commercial, they're gonna be worth more the more rent that they can get for it. So that's why you see these apartment buildings where initially the rent is $1,000 and next year it goes up every single year. Every year the rent goes up. And here's the thing, rents are going up more than your income. Because for corporate America, the average increase in salary is somewhere between 3 to 5%. But yet rents are going up 12%, 20%, some even 50%. There was an article where somebody had bought a property who was an out-of-state investor, and they doubled the rent. So even though you're like, who would do that? It's happening every single day. All right, so you can follow me. These are all my social media channels. If you, whatever your favorite happens to be, you can click the barcode and, click the QR code and follow me. But it's time to transform our thinking to an owner's mentality. So many of us have this renter's mentality. Maybe you have a business and you're renting your apartment and you're renting space for your business. What if you bought a commercial building where your business was on the first level and you lived on the second level? Now you're buying a business and you're just paying one mortgage. You're not paying rent over here for your apartment and rent over here for your business. Why not put those together? And I know I've mentioned this to a lot of people, especially hair stylists. A lot of people are like, well, I don't want to live where I work at. Okay, so go ahead and buy the commercial building and then rent it out to other people so that at least you're still getting income for that building and you're not putting out over here for rent and you're putting out. So you're starting to get in more than you're putting out. That's the goal, is to bring in more money than you put out, right? And then your mind is your greatest asset. Your mind is your greatest asset. You already have real estate, and it's your mind. So instead of thinking what you cannot do, we're removing can't from our vocabulary, and we're going to be creative and say, how can I? So whatever you came into this conference thinking, and maybe you had some limiting beliefs, I don't want you to leave this conference the same way that you came. I pray that when you leave this conference, you have a new desire to say, you know what? I can. Whatever it is, I can. I can. And guess what? You can. All right, any questions? Do I have any time left for questions?
You got 10 minutes.
All right, any questions? Jaden?
What type of advice would you give to a college student looking to get into real estate?
So, the duplex strategy or the college strategy. So you either find a duplex and you rent out one unit and you live in the other unit, or the college strategy where you buy a 4-bedroom, as many bathrooms as possible. It's really cool to have a 3-bedroom, 3-bath. And here's a hack. So when you're looking at property, because this is what I do all the time. So when you're looking at property, you want to see if you can add value. So when I'm looking for property, I'm looking for, because typically a 3-bedroom is about 1,000 square feet. So if it says it's a 3-bedroom, I'm looking for square footage more than 1,000. So if it has like 1,500 square feet and it says it's a 3-bedroom, in my mind, I'm thinking, can I turn that into a 4? Or if it has a bath and a half, so one of the properties that I bought had 1.5 baths. So I'm going in thinking, I'll take my contractor with me and we'll look and see, okay, is there room to add a shower? Is there room to push this back some so that, or can we come into the kitchen? So what we ended up doing was we came into the kitchen more so that we could add a shower. So now it's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath instead of a 4, 1.5. So you're looking for ways to add value because with the list price on there, other people aren't thinking that. They're just thinking, oh, it's a 3-1. But if it's a 3-1 and it's got 1,500 square feet, and I'm trying to see if I can add another bathroom. I'm trying to see, especially 1,600, 1,700 square feet, I'm seeing what value I can add because the price is based off of the fact that it's a 3-1. But if I can turn it into a 4-2, now I've increased the value as well. So definitely the college strategy where you live in 1 bedroom and then you rent out the other bedrooms, or if you're really a hustler, you live in the living room, you sleep on the couch, you get you a pull-out couch, and you rent out 4 of them jokers, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hold on 1 second. I want to make sure that, I'm going to get to you, AV. We'll make sure that those on the front 2 rows answer questions first. These are the premium ticket holders. So we want to make sure you all ask first in the Q&A. You bought that right. All right. If y'all have questions, we going back there. Anyone in these first 3 rows have any questions?
I do.
All right.
I do too.
Go ahead.
Shalom. So I invested in a property with $60,000. Now it has turned into $200,000. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to see if it would benefit me to rent it out and then me go into another property, or should I just sell it and then just buy a duplex to help maybe benefit me and the other property, just continue on like that?
It really depends on your strategy. So, whether you want income, passive income, or I definitely don't recommend you selling it without a plan. So definitely know your big goal. What is it you want to accomplish? How much money do you want to make? Or those specific goals. And then based off of the specific goals for you, then you can decide, okay, it makes more sense for me to go ahead and sell it because when I sell it, I'm going to do this with the money. Don't just sell to be selling, right? But just make sure that you have a clear strategy so that what you are doing aligns with your strategy. So number one, I would make sure that I have a clear strategy, and then that should be able to help answer your question in order to, before I can really just say, do whatever, it really depends on what your strategies and your goals are.
It's to continue to invest. That's what I'm finding.
So right now, the property that is $60,000, are you renting it now?
No, I'm not. I live in it. I've remodeled it, and so the value has came up to $200,000. So I was like, should I rent it and then go and just, buy another property, like a duplex?
Yeah, I probably, and just high level off the cuff, right, I would continue to rent it. I probably would pull some equity out of it and use the equity to go buy more property. That way you have a cash flowing property over here and you get to buy more, and then you can have cash flowing properties and you can have just little oil wells all over the city.
Got it. Thank you so much.
All right. Hold on. We're going
Uncle Will,
premium first. We're going premium.
my fault, Uncle Willie, my fault.
Okay, so doing that, wouldn't it be advisable to, like, when you want to find property, you go downtown and look in the, what is it, on the, thank you, down, and you go to the newspaper and see who's got their foreclosures and things like that. Do you think advise us to go do something like that?
I don't advise a foreclosure on your first property.
Okay.
And here's why. Because most of the time, foreclosures have been vacant for a long time.
Yeah, the bank owns it, don't they?
Yeah, the bank owns it, and the bank is not in the real estate business, so they're doing the minimal amount to prevent code violations, right? And so for example, if the LG&E has been off or the utilities have been off for a year or more, which probably they have potentially, then in Louisville, you have to get a permit in order to get the gas turned on. So there's just so much more complex things that will happen with a foreclosure. So once you've done a couple, then you can, dabble in the foreclosure, but I don't recommend the foreclosure being your first investment property.
All right. We have my man AV, Obadiah, then Uncle Willie, Cole Rain next. Any other premium members though, before I go out? Any other premium questions? All right, AV.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What was your process finding a trustworthy, reliable general contractor? I'm just curious. Big money question.
That's a great question, and I'll give you two answers. My first answer was, I met my general contractor by a divine appointment. So I saw a video, and there was a black female general contractor, and I said, I gotta meet her, because I didn't know it existed until I saw it. I'm like, there's black female general contractors? And so then how a thought will come to you and it just leave you? So that thought came, and then it just left me. And then I'm looking on Facebook, I see this property, and I'm like, ooh, it looks good. I reach out and I meet up with the person because I'm looking for a general contractor. So I see a property that looks pretty decent, but pictures can be deceiving. So I was like, hey, I see some of your work? I'm looking for a general contractor. Can I see your property? And so I had a accountability partner. I was like, hey, I'm gonna go check out this work. You wanna go with me? So we go meet up at the property. She's showing us around this, that, and the other. And I was like, do you have a business card? And she was like, no, I don't have a business card. She was like, I believe that when you build relationships, that the money will come. And I just looked at her like she had two heads, because I was like, does she really believe that? Now I understand. And so that was the general contractor. I was like, oh my goodness. Well, the lady who I brought with me, she knew. She was like, I thought you knew. I was like, no. And we've been rocking with one another ever since. Wow. So that was how I met her. That's how I met my general contractor. The other way, outside of a divine appointment, is going to Lowe's and Home Depot at 7 o'clock in the morning, because the general contractors that are there, they're the real deal. And so then you ask to see their properties and what they are working on. And when you see a property that's being renovated, then you go into that property and see if the general contractor is there, because now you're in the property and you're seeing what their work looks like, because that's the most important thing, because pictures are so deceiving online, and you have to see with your own eyes these properties. And so that's how I would definitely recommend, because I was in Home Depot the other day, and there's all kind of contractors in there, and you just introduce yourself and let them know what you're doing, ask them if they have a card, and just build relationships with them that way. The other thing I would say to you is, don't pay anybody up front.
Right.
So everybody's not honest.
Right.
And so if a general contractor needs your money in order to do the job, then that means they're robbing Peter to pay Paul. And so they're not well enough established yet, which, if you're willing to, you're like, okay, you're not willing to start, I'll give you a little bit of money to get started, or buy the materials, have the materials delivered to the property, and then maybe give them a little bit if you're like, man, I just want to get them started, but don't give them a lot. But my personal preference is, don't pay anybody until they have done some of the work, and you've seen the work, and now you're able to pay them. Can we take Uncle Willie now? I know.
And we got
Obadiah. I know, it's a courtesy to get you, Uncle Willie. I was going to take you, right?
So with all the competition, as far as obtaining properties, what's your criteria? Like, how do you come up with your bottom line for what you're willing to pay for an investment property?
Great question. So I do this thing where I crunch the numbers, and one of these slides has my barcode for, I have a 5-day mini series of a video every single day, and it's completely free. And on day 3, I have a crunch your numbers where I show you how the purchase price, and all the old timers will say, you gotta buy right. And that is so true, which means you have to buy the property at the right price or it's gonna be really, really hard to make money. So just because a property is listed for $75,000, it depends on how much work that it needs and the area that it's in. So what I do is I back into it. How much work does it need? How much is it going to be worth the after repair value? Once I put $100,000 into it, how much is it going to be worth after that? And then you don't want to over repair the neighborhood. That's why it's so important to know what the values are in this particular neighborhood. So you get an idea, and you can do this by looking at like Realtor.com, where you see, okay, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath sells for about $150,000 in this particular neighborhood. So I take that price of potentially $150,000, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and so I'm looking for 3-bedroom, 2-baths that in the picture, it's got boards on the doors and boards on the windows, and it's at a low price, like $75,000. It's in a $150,000 neighborhood. I know it needs a little tender love and care. So I'm looking at the pictures to see about how much I think it's gonna cost for the repair. So if that $75,000 house needs $100,000 worth of work, and it's in a $150,000 neighborhood, then I can't offer $75,000 because there's no room for me to make money. So in the spreadsheet, I show you how you can play around with that buy number so that you can reduce that number, let's say $50,000. Well, what's your potential profit if I get it for $50,000? Oh, not enough. And you have to decide what your profit is going to be initially. So if I want to make $30,000, I have to play around with the numbers to offer the right price to make $30,000. Maybe that looks like a purchase price of $25,000. Now my numbers work out. I offer them $25,000. So I'm able to play around with the numbers in my spreadsheet, and that's how I determine how much I offer for the property.